Oh, there we go. There we go. I love it. I love it.
Welcome to the Golf and Politics Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Ellsworth. I'm here with my co-host, Matt Parker, and we have a special guest today, Simon Holt. Simon Holt is joining us from Edinburgh, Scotland. He runs the top 100 world list for golf magazine, golf.com, and is also heavily involved with 8 a.m. golf. And he is a co-host of the Destination Golf podcast, which is a great listen. I'll highly recommend you tuning into that. Simon, big week for you. November 19th, you released the World Top 100 list. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the process, methodology, and who are the panelists that are rating these courses?
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me, Rob and Matt. As soon as I got the message from Rob, I was keen to come on. So it's always nice to be the one that's answering the questions. Sometimes it takes a bit of pressure off. But yeah. Okay. So straight away, it is Golf Magazine and golf.com are one and the same. We own our parent company, 8 a.m. Golf, which I effectively work for, owns both of those entities. And my wider role covers 8 a.m. travel, of which I'm CEO of, and then anything to do with travel and courses kind of tends to fall into my world, which is very flattering. So to take it back a step, I was sat at breakfast last August, and Hoyt, our group CEO, got a call off Ron Morissette, who was my predecessor, basically saying he loved it. He's done 6 iterations of lists, and he thinks it's time to step aside. So Hoyt put the phone down and was just like, "Hey, bud, you're up." And that's basically how I got to take over with zero warning whatsoever. I did not realize the beast that this thing was as something that had just fallen on my desk. But you asked about panelists, like who are they, the process and things like that. So we have 126 panelists around the world. A big chunk of them are from the US. We'll get onto that a little later, I guess. But we go around and it's a 2-year cycle for the world, a 2-year cycle for the US. 1 year it'll be world, which is this year. Next year we'll do US and so on. So it's 2-year cycles. Everyone gets what's called a ballots, like a voting sheet with this year had over 500 courses on. I think it was like 540 something golf courses from around the world that myself and others deem worthwhile to consider to be in the World Top 100. From that point onwards, the panelists go out and see them. They don't have to see every course that they vote for in a 2-year cycle. They can vote historically, and they go out and then they vote in their buckets. And that has to be to me by September. Then we release it in the November. So unless I'm droning on too much here, I'll talk to you about the buckets just briefly. But we vote 1 to 3, 4 to 10, 11 to 25, 26 to 50, 51, 76. 51, 75, 76, 100, 101, 150, and so on. So let's pick the obvious example, Pine Valley, number 1 golf course in the world, has been for 40 years. This year was our 40th anniversary of the rankings. That if you vote for that in bucket 1 to 3, that course gets awarded 100 points. And then all your points are tallied together and divided by the number of panelists that have visited that course. And that gives you your average score. And that is then what we do in descending order is the average score spits out the world ranking. So there you go. That's it.
And so what makes a good panelist? Should you be a good golfer? Is it somebody that's got a lot of free time on their hands, can afford to do a lot of travel?
Yeah. The thing that's kind of slightly awkward to approach is what you've just mentioned last there, the affordability side of it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of travel involved. No one gets paid for this. I like my guys to fly below the radar, almost, dare I say, like Michelin star. They just arrive, fly below. And of course, guys have a digital credential. So sometimes they'll maybe show that and it'll afford them a little access. But it's not like someone's calling Augusta and getting in just because they have this digital card. I mean, that's not happening. I'll underline that. So most of our panelists are very, very well connected. that affords them access to places, and I prefer people to fly under the radar. I want our panelists to just be very quiet, great ambassadors for our brand, that if maybe they do sit down with the GM, they can hold a conversation, they can speak knowledgeably about the golf course and what they've seen, and articulate their own thoughts on their preferences or things that they've seen on the golf course. I don't necessarily feel they're there to like give advice or feedback to professionals such as superintendents that have their way of managing the golf course already. But every now and then people will ask that, and I ask people to be respectful, as I'm sure they all are, and they'll just talk about their personal preference, really. Yes, these people have to be successful enough to afford the travel around the world, especially if you're doing the world list. It's kind of awkward to talk about, but I mean, yeah, do the maths. If you wanted to play all 100, just think about the flights alone on that.
I am keenly aware. I finished the U.S. top 100 list, and I'm at 81 on your world list.
Yeah.
And I often joke in my office, I have 7 custom built 100 ball racks.
Yeah.
And when people walk in and look at it, I often tell them it's the most expensive piece of art I own.
Yeah.
Even more than my diploma. So I one thing that is coming to mind, I look at some of the courses on here. You know, I had the pleasure of meeting you last year at Ardfin Estate, which was just truly spectacular.
Yeah.
The entire experience of, you know, just getting there, the food, the lodging, the scenery. I also got a chance to go with, you know, Rich Levine and Mike Blackham and David Forgan to Shanking Bay in China, which was just similarly breathtaking. Am I supposed to remove that from my evaluating experience, or is that all part of it? The scenery, the whole everything about the vibe.
The way, yeah, I asked the panelists to remove all of that. So remove the clubhouse, remove any sort of red carpet treatment you might get when you arrive. Even if they knew you're a panelist, regardless, like some places just do such an exquisite job of hospitality and taking care of their members' guests. So you try and remove all that. You try and remove, to a certain degree, the views, albeit I have a viewpoint on that the surroundings is part of the golf course, part of the landscape. But we don't lay out like a criteria. So I covered off a couple of things about the panelists there that almost you have to be well-traveled, you have to want to travel, you have to be able to get access to these places. But then more about their eye and what they're looking for. I would love to think we have a very balanced panel. I think we have something like 16 or 17 architects, about the same number of nationalities. But I feel everyone that I've spoken to on the panel knows what I believe is good and great about golf course architecture. We might not agree on absolutely everything, but I think they've been to enough places. They're not quite numb to the experience and numb to the fanfare that you might get at some golf courses in terms of experience, but they're there to really drill down about the golf course. So that shouldn't come into it. At the same time, we're all human beings. Like anything in life, just like eating a great meal in a Michelin star restaurant, I believe some of these places hit you with all the senses. So they have certain sounds and noises and things like that, and smells and visuals around the food that make you enjoy it even more. It's kind of the same for golf courses. Even if we don't know it's happening, it probably is.
You can just kind of feel it sometimes walking on the property. You know, for me, it might be looking at the bunkers or the green complexes or just, you know, the firm and fast turf. You know, how important for you is memorability, you know, being able to remember all the holes? What for Simon Holt personally, what are some just key characteristics of a great golf course?
I think you've just touched upon it in there that it is probably what I spin out most of the time when people ask me that question. Is I think the absolute bar for truly great golf courses is, can you remember every hole? As you're driving away in the car, can you remember every hole? 5 years later, can you remember every single hole? Some people have this crazy memory where they get every shot, every club they hit at numerous golf courses. I'm not that guy, but I can remember every hole at every course I would kind of bracket as great. And then some courses, those holes start to blend together, and I sort of go, well, okay, maybe it's not quite as good as I thought. And then a few years ago, I did this exercise for actually a UK publication before I was in my now role with ATM and Golf Magazine. I did a piece for Golf Monthly in the UK during COVID, and they were scraping the barrel for content, and they asked me to do my eclectic 18 holes from around the world. And we set these rules where the first hole had to be a first hole, the second hole had to be a second hole, and so on. And only one hole per course maximum. So it was a really great exercise. I encourage everyone to do it because it really drills down to the courses that are truly great. Because somewhere like a Royal County Down, I could have put 10 different holes. Other courses, just one or two. Does that make sense? So the courses that were right at the top of that list where I could have chose a number of different holes, there was no shock to me that those were the courses at the top of the world rankings because I could A, remember all the holes, and B, they were of such good quality. It wasn't just one or two great holes in that course. It was over half a dozen, sometimes over 9 on one golf course.
Can I ask real quick about Pine Valley along those lines?
Yeah.
I was fortunate Rob was able to work it out so I could play with one of his friends last year. It was an experience of a lifetime. And David Bannister, our host, said that he hosted dinner almost every year, and he asked everybody he hosts to write down on an index card their 3 favorite holes. He said in all the years of doing that, he's never not had one of the 18 holes represented on somebody's card.
Wow.
Is that in your mind like what sets Pine Valley apart and is number one on just about every list?
Yes, is the quick answer. That's a really cool exercise. I'm going to steal that. That's fun. Wow. That's impressive actually, but doesn't surprise me now I'm thinking about it. I'm Captain Positive, but to flip that on its head and just say to someone, okay, name me the weakest hole at Pine Valley, I would love to know what the answer to that were. Because I don't know the answer to that. I know what some people have said to me, but I don't necessarily agree with it. But yeah, holes like 13 at Pine Valley. I think 13 at Pine Valley is the best par 4 in the world, no close seconds. And then really cool set par 3s. If I was to be super picky, I don't think there's much going on with 14. Like a sort of drop shot down over the water to a green that's just okay. Relative to the rest of the golf course, of course. But it doesn't mean it's a weak hole. It's just one that I'm like, okay, I've played better par 3s than that. Whereas the other par 3s are pretty stout.
So you've played all over the world, even in Cuba and North Korea.
I've not played in those places, but okay.
We recently had my buddy Patrick Koenig on, who did the RGV tour. And so my question for you is if there was a Simon Holt, RGV tour, where would you park it? Where would you drive around? Would it be England? Would it be East Lothian? Would it be, somewhere on Long Island?
Interesting. I mean, it's hard to look past Scotland. I remember when I played the 2013 Golf Magazine list, and I finished that in May 2019, with our good friend Rich Levine and one of my friends, Nicholas Henderson, who flew down from Scotland to play with me. You have a moment of reflection after that. And it's like, look, I've chased around the world to see all these places, and it kind of underlined to me what great golf there was right at home. So there's part of me that wants to say, I'll just fire it up and play all the really cool off the beaten track places in Scotland that I've not played. There's something like 550 golf courses in Scotland. I mean, I've probably played more golf courses in the US than I have in Scotland. So in that respect, I'd love to be at home. There's something about New Zealand that I absolutely love. And that just like the bigger journey of a place, I would love to do it with my wife and kids, like New Zealand, just because the scenery is so crazy and I love the golf there. And there's golf courses there as well. You hear all the big names, but there's lots of what they would call country courses that you haven't heard of. And I suppose I just feel like Asia is this place. I was saying this recently. I just feel like the list is so skewed towards the US, and I get that. Some people say it's biased. I would say, well, actually, they have great land for golf because it's a continent, not a country, and they have the budget to go with it. But I just feel there's so much cool land in Asia. Dare I say it, less regulation, so you can probably build a bunch of stuff that you definitely couldn't build in UK and Ireland now because of environmental sensitivities. So where is that great golf course out there that I've not seen, or maybe isn't being taken care of in the right way, to our tastes, I might say, or hasn't been built yet? So where is that? And I don't know, bouncing around Asia would be pretty cool because I love Asian food.
There's a lot of the golf courses on this list that, well, first and foremost, I'd say just over half of them are publicly accessible.
Yeah.
You put a little time and effort and, of course, some money to go. Most of the private clubs are in the US. But there really doesn't seem to be a strong bias towards seaside courses versus inland. But one trend I do see is sandy soil.
Yeah.
Firm and fast conditions. And we've seen drops on a lot of lists of like places like Muirfield Village in Columbus, Ohio, or other clubs that are built on clay. Do you see that as a trend of people wanting that firm, fast, bouncy golf?
Definitely. People want the firm, fast, bouncy golf. That doesn't necessarily mean super sandy soil, but it certainly means excellent drainage, which is tougher when someone's building on clay. I would say what I've seen the shift to is more width. So I interviewed Gil Hans on Saturday. It's going to come out soon on Destination Golf. And we talked a little bit about width. So I think what happened with the course, let's talk about Southern Hills, and I've not seen it since Gil's redo. When I played Southern Hills pre that restoration, I felt that I just didn't get it. And everyone had raved about Southern Hills forever, but it become swamped in rough, and the bunkers were marooned in rough, the greens were small. I was like, whatever. So when you say firm and fast, yes, people prefer that. But if you're asking about a trend and the way things have gone, it's more about width. Now, I have a viewpoint that maybe the pendulum is right at one end right now. Certainly with some of the resort golf, I feel I'm an okay golfer. That I play with lots of very good golfers that I work with, and my friends at my home club at North Berwick at St. Allen. But there needs to be something off the tee that challenges that guy. So if every single hole is just wide open, I feel that the really good golfer kind of loses interest. And I know the party line is, oh, but you need to be in the right place on that short grass to access the pins and blah, blah, blah. I get it. I've read all those articles. I've read those books like the next guy. But I feel that is where we're at. I do feel that we've got to a point where it'll start to come back in. I just hope it doesn't go back to what it was in like the 80s or 90s. So I don't know if that's really answered your question, but that's kind of the trend that I've seen and noticed.
No, it is. I mean, on behalf of golfers who hit it very straight, but not that far, but end up having to play people like Matt, who hits it 360 yards. I'm delighted for there to be a premium on accuracy.
Yeah.
That was one of my beefs. I thought Old Barnwell was very good. But there's only, fairways are so wide and it's so forgiving, and angles don't matter when you're playing against somebody that can hit it 360 and then have a gap wedge in and hit it 120 feet in the air. I don't care what angle you throw at them. There has to be some sort of protection off the tee. I mean, how else could the winning score at Marion in the US Open be +1 by Justin Rose on a 6,900-yard golf course? Well, they have narrow fairways, high rough, and pinched landing areas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then as well with someone like Muirfield, which is one of my favorites, in the 2013 Open when Phil won, I'm almost certain he was the only guy under par. There's maybe one other guy under par. I think Phil finished at 3 under, and people like Lee Westwood, Tiger, a few others were in the hunt. Maybe someone else got to 1 under, but I was there all 4 days. It was baked out, no more than 15-mile-an-hour winds the whole week. But because it was so baked out, balls were running through the fairways into the rough. There was a challenge off the tee there. And like I say, it wasn't like there was some bonkers weather day to blow these guys off the course. It was just so firm and fast. And the angles are such at that golf course, and the bunkers gather so much. You really have to place your golf ball off the tee.
I put a lot of thought into lists. And I I generally have reached the conclusion that I think they're great for golf. And it's not just because I'm a list chaser, but it gives people something to shoot at. It gives us an excuse to travel and see the world, make new friends. It gives us the opportunity, lists like yours, to see some tracks that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. You know, on a recent trip to the UK, I went to play Sunningdale and Royal St. George's and Deal. Well, also in Woodhall Spa. Well, on the way to Woodhall Spa, I stopped and played Knott's at Hollandwell, which was lovely. I never would have thought to do that. I got up one morning and made a long drive out to, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, St. Enodoc.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Absolutely fabulous course. Might be, it's one of my favorites, you know, of the, calling that a B-side seems to me like a stretch because it's so good. But one of the drawbacks of these lists, and I think I've seen these with my own clubs that are on and off top 100 US and other clubs I talk to, they're spending a fortune to get on these lists. You know, if they drop from 79 to 91, they're like, oh shit, what are we doing wrong? We need to hire someone and do a $25 million renovation, which drives up the cost for the membership. Do you think that there is a drawback? Because really, the difference between course number 82 and course number 115, I mean, we're talking a relatively small difference.
Yeah.
Do you worry that sometimes clubs are spending too much and driving up costs to compete?
As long as it's not my money, I really don't lose sleep on it. But but I don't know if I was to pretend to be that kind of whatever, like into clubs' finances. Yeah, I want people to keep it in perspective. So you've hit the nail on the head. The lists have got a lot of positives as far as I'm concerned. I think people and clubs and green committees and have to be wary of, if you drop 2 or 3 spots, it's the difference between, say 3 of us are panelists. It's the difference between Matt turning up at a place one year he hasn't been to for 5 years, and we'll wade into recency bias, I guess, in a second. Matt's not seen it for 5 years. He votes it in his 50 to 51 to 75. And he goes, wow, I didn't remember how great this place was. He bumps it up. He doesn't visit another course that was also in that bucket, so it doesn't have the benefit of you being there, Matt, and remembering how good it is, something like that. Plus, you're not just competing against yourself. All these other courses are spending money. New courses are coming on the list. So it's not like a swimmer trying to do a PB. You know, you could be knocking your PB out of the park, but just other places are actually in people's minds a little bit more. So if you're, and that, those 1 or 2 changes in votes are enough to, inverted commas, make another club fall back when actually it's just stayed exactly the same. Does that make sense? It's more the math thing within the buckets. So I would say if that happens, keep your cool. Don't worry. It is what it is. More than likely, someone will go to your place the next time. Because what panelists tend to do, they see a course go down, like, wow, what's happened there? They'll go and see it and like, what are people talking about? This place is great. And they'll vote it up again. So that tends to happen. And then if courses are dropping 20 spots, like some of them did, there's a reason behind a couple of those big swings on this current list, especially the Cabot courses and then the Banlin list going up. That was a bunch of like 4 or 5 panelists coming off that voted a particular way, 4 or 5 coming on that voted exactly the opposite way, none of whom knew each other. There was no group think or anything like that. I think 2 of them knew each other. And that was enough to swing those votes big time. Some of the other courses, if you've dropped 10, 12, 15 spots, you should probably ask a question why that's happening. But again, don't go out and spend 20 million on your golf course. Like, whatever, be pretty comfortable. But the final point on that is calling BS on people that say they don't care about the rankings, because every single person does. Like, every single person on Green Committee cares about rankings.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we had a drop in a recent list at one of my clubs, and board members were talking about not letting panelists play anymore because they were so mad and hurt. And I was like, that is the dumbest thing you could possibly do. Like that is it, because you're still going to care about the next list that comes out, and it's going to look, we're going to do even worse. Have panelists come play, let them see the course, let them experience it.
Yeah.
My next question is touching on a key phrase you used there is on recency bias.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about my top 10, just focus in the US for ease for us. Pine Valley, Shinnecock National, Oakmont, Sandhills, they kind of stay roughly in the same place for me, admittedly, because I fortunately get to play them every year. I recently just played Marion for the first time in 10 years, and it jumped up my list. And part of that might be because Gil Hands did fabulous renovations since the last time I had been there. Part of it might be I've seen more and learned more than I knew 10 years ago, but it's also fresh in my mind. So for example, I haven't been back to Cypress Point to play in roughly the same time period. And I'm wondering if I go back to play Cypress Point this year and it jumps. I mean, there's not far for a Cypress Point or a Marion to jump, but when you start to leap on it, so I feel myself having to fight a recency bias of what's fresh in my mind or that's, recently been renovated. Is that something that you worry about?
Not worry, and I'm not saying that to sound like so relaxed about it, but I generally don't worry. But I'd probably take a little while, metaphorically, like take a bit of a cold shower. And I think some people, if anyone's listening that is this guy at your golf club, this is my personal preference, that if someone knows you're on a panel, please don't come and if you're the guy at the club that likes to take care of panelists, look after them, just give them time and space to breathe. So I don't like it when I come off a course and the guy's trying to sit you down and invites himself for a beer with you, and he's like, "Hey, so what do you think?" The moment you've walked off the 18th green, and there's a course in Japan, a resort course in Japan, that get you to fill out a form the moment you've come off. It's like, well, I just need time to let it all percolate. And what am I saying with this? In terms of the recency bias, I just don't come off a course and go, "Oh my God, this is so much better. This is definitely here in my rankings now." I kind of let it sink in a little bit. And I don't do my ballot. I think some guys and girls probably do their ballot as the year goes on. They kind of fiddle around with it. I always leave mine until 2 weeks before it needs to be in, because then I feel any of that is worn off. But also I just have a broader perspective by just stepping back slightly.
That's the same I took with college. I always waited to the last 2 weeks.
I've got a question about rating. And first off, let me just offer to host you. If you're come to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I'll host you at Southern Hills if you haven't played it since the Gil Hands redesign, which is unbelievable. But I have struggled. I've started down this path. I've not played anywhere near the amount of top 100s that Rob has. And I have struggled to really understand a golf course after just one round or even 2 rounds. And I mean, at Southern, it took me about 6 weeks of membership before I started really appreciating certain holes that I didn't appreciate the first time I played it. So when you're evaluating a course and you only get to play it one time, how do you trust your first impressions, and what are some things that you're looking for in that visit that will tell you whether or not a golf course is truly great? And also, have you ever had any first impressions that were totally wrong when you went back to a course a second time?
Those are both great questions. I think, first off, I'll always admit this, is I feel I need to see a golf course at least a couple of times. In a perfect world, you played in a member guest, and you're seeing the course under a couple of different conditions. Hopefully they move around tees, and you get to see the course in different lights over a few days. You really get to learn the place. And I spoke to Tom Dokes, sorry, big name drop there, but Doak is got the greatest database of anyone, right? And I spoke to him the other day, just before the list came out. We chatted a few things through. I said, I'm thinking about bringing some pro golfers back onto the panel. And historically, the magazine used to have that. And then for whatever reason, us bunch of amateurs were maybe looking down our nose at that. His point is, well, hang on a minute. maybe that's got something to do with championship courses disappearing. And if you have a few pros on there that you feel have an architectural eye, and I guess I have to kind of be able to judge that, and they're seeing enough, they then see the golf course 5 times probably if they make the cut in a week minimum. And they're going back there every year. So do you think me, who's been lucky enough to go to Augusta on 2 separate occasions, knows Augusta better than someone like a Justin Rose that's played, maybe, I'm guessing, 15 to 20 Masters Championships? There's no way I know the golf course better than that guy. So I've gone off down a bit of a rabbit hole there, but I do feel personally that I need to see the golf course more than once. But if I am only going to see it once, which I kind of assume most places when I'm there, I'll take a little time to walk around the green and not just kind of hole out and scamper to the next tee. When everyone else is putting, I try not to slow anyone down. I'll be looking around the edge of the greens, looking at things like the fall-offs, things that I really like. I've alluded to it, and it's harder on parkland courses, but I don't like bunkers having rough, like calls are rough around. Certainly the entrances to them, I believe bunkers should gather. So there's the little things that are personal to me that I believe are imperative to proper golf course presentation, which is different from conditioning, right? A course could be absolutely dialed in terms of conditioning, no divots, no nothing. But if it's not letting the architecture sing, or the superintendents let the first cut grow in so much, it's covering up all the undulations and interest, that really irritates me. And it probably, in my mind, I probably mark it down a point without really consciously doing so. Yeah, I mean, those are the kind of the things that I look for. Another thing, sorry, I'm on my soapbox now, is when you do go to these memory guests, is if the superintendent sets the golf course up with all the craziest pins and the greens are running at 13, that is why memory guests run at 6 hours. And by the way, if I'm coming to see your golf course on those few days, I'm probably going away. Again, we talked about earlier, I'm a human being. I'm probably going away frustrated, and it probably doesn't put the course in a great light. We've all got an ego. I'm not saying dumb the course down, far from it. I'm just saying balance the way the golf course is set up.
I want to challenge your Augusta premise because I've played it twice, and I don't think there's a single tour pro out there who hit more 7-woods into those greens than I did. So I think I've got a level of expertise that they do not have. I want to talk about, obviously we want to have a world top 100 list, and it's sexy to be one of the world top 100. Do you think it would be useful maybe to have different categories where you compare the best links courses or the best parkland or the best heathland? Because, I'll give an example with my co-host, and in the last year we've played a lot of golf together. He got to see how much I love Ballybunion and my friends there and the experience there with Gerard Burke, friend of the program. We played Pine Valley together. We played Fox Chapel, Southern Hills. They're all totally different. It's like, how do you compare? Shouldn't you compare Ballybunion to Royal County Down or the Old Course, or Augusta National to a world-class Parkland course? Is it fair to compare totally different apples and oranges?
Or comparing Bandon Trails and Bandon Dunes, right? That's the big challenge too. When you're there and you're fighting over which courses are best, it's like, well, Bandon Trails is awesome, but it just doesn't fit these other courses we just played.
Well, I do want to talk about that, Matt, because that's actually, you've hit upon a great example. But firstly, if you want to compare those courses, truly it's as obvious, and you guys know this. You just look at the list and you can you say you're comparing links, you just get rid of all the ones that aren't links, and then you're comparing links against links, of course, like a list within a list. But yeah, how do you compare a links golf course like the Old Course, which is totally wide open, not really any rough to speak of, and now they've ripped out virtually all the gorse over the past 10, 20 years, to somewhere like, let's pick a golf course, Super Tree Lines golf course, I don't know, whatever, like somewhere that's like really demanding off the tee, like I guess Marion, albeit Marion's not choked with trees far from it. Yeah, Oak Hill's a really good example. Certainly some of the courses in Japan are great examples of that. how can you compare those two? And I think in your mind, it might be a genre thing. So maybe you are doing that going, well, this is the best of this type. Like, this is what makes this so great. But then some people are also going to just be, dare I say it, blondes versus brunettes, if we can get away with that in this world. It's just a personal preference. Like, do I like, I don't know, do I like soda or do I like water? You know, some people are going to like one particular thing more than the other, one style. So there will be that bias within their list. And that's where it's important for us to make sure we have a really broad spectrum of people on the panel. If everyone was like an absolute links course junkie on the panel, then it'd be heavily skewed that way, I'm sure.
Okay. Matt, do you have any? I know you.
No, that's
about.
We didn't talk about Bandon.
Oh, yeah.
I love that question. So, Bandon, when I went up there, and I stand by this, I think it's impossible that, because Bandon Trails is such a good golf course, certainly if you play it last, you've played these other courses that are pretty similar. Certainly Bandon Dunes and Pacific are very similar. Old Mac, different in a way. And then you're taking this wonderful walk in the woods, and it's just this wonderful foil to the other golf you've played, and it's almost like a bit of a hit of something else. So say you're in a foreign country and just need you're just desperate for a burger. So you've eaten like Thai food 7 days on the bounce, you're in Bangkok, and I could just kill a burger. You have the burger, you're like, oh my God, how good does that taste? And maybe that's the sort of the best analogy you can come up with about Bandon Trails. And I really, really like that golf course. And I think that point of difference with it, whether conscious or not, inflates it in people's minds a little. I could buy into that theory anyway.
Do you think if there's a foursome of American golfers that want to experience links golf, do you think that they should do their first trip to Bandon Dunes or just go to Scotland or Ireland and do it?
If you're a West Coast guy and time, and of course money, but certainly time is a thing, bounce up to Bandon, you're going to get like a fix of links course golf, but it's on a resort. And I love Bandon. Bandon's great. If you're an East Coast guy or anywhere that has direct flights to Ireland or Scotland, you got to go there because you're going to get this such a pure experience on top of just the quality of golf. So the quality of golf, nowhere does links golf as well as they do in the UK and Ireland, and that's just the way it is. Like, that's because we've had hundreds of years to refine it, right? There's a reason why it's that good. But then also everything that goes around that with the cultural experiences and the people, the pubs, which are high on my agenda, things like that. Whereas somewhere like Bandon, I'm kind of picking on Bandon, any resort would be like this. You kind of in Bandon world, and you can't really get away from it, especially a place like that. It's a true destination. And the same could be said going to somewhere like the Kohler places or to Streamsong, Kiowa, Pinehurst, all the same. They're very resort centric. Whereas when you come to the UK and Ireland, these golf courses are in the middle of communities. They're literally there on the edge of town or in town some of the times. And golf is part of the fabric of those communities, which is what makes it so special.
Bandon, Streamsong, Whistling Straits, done them all, and they're incredible. And I'm glad I've done them. This might be a really hot take, but if I never go back to any of those places, I would be just fine. But I have to get back to Ireland. I have to go to Scotland. It's in my soul of like, I need to go spend a month in Ireland. I had that much fun when I was there. The culture blows your mind. I mean, the golf courses are amazing. Some of it, which will never be on lists that we played, Rob, that I think are just as good as any course at Bandon. But it's the culture and the caddies and the time in the pub after that, just you'll never forget.
Well, and cost wise,
it's cheaper.
I can get a flight to London or to Edinburgh, to Dublin or wherever direct, oftentimes definitely faster. I mean, I can get to the moon faster than I can get to Bandon from Washington, D.C. And I mean, if you're smart about it, my I can't leave the house for under $500. So I'm about to, but the hotels we stayed at throughout England were totally reasonable. We stayed at the Roxy, the chain, the Roxy. The rental car was reasonable. We played mostly with members. So I don't think I had any rounds that cost more than 80 or 100 pounds. I'm not sure, but it wasn't terrible. It was,
That's one big difference with us, where we would, like, our member guest fees are so affordable. Like, if you're a member at a club over here, it really pays, because you're being, it's so affordable for us to take guests on, arguably too affordable. For me to take a guest at my home club, I think it's like £20 a guest, whereas I know in the States, when I'm hosted, you're talking hundreds, right? So that's a huge difference, and our annual dues as well. And that's reflected in our green fees, albeit they now are starting to ramp up a little bit. So most courses that are on the real trail, if you like, the tourist trail, got to be north of £400, which is north of $500. That would be like a top 10 or 20 visitor course. I will say there's value to be found, and my home course in North Berwick, for example, I think next year is £320, which is, at a guess, $400, something like that. But it's something like the 8th best course in the UK from our recent rankings, if you work it out. About the 5th best course in Scotland, and that's pretty good value. When you look at places that are more, a Kingsbarns, a resort type course, and they've got different expenses, of course, are kind of in the high 400s now. Yeah, there's certain places that you can get more value than others. But what I say about trips in general on the list is, if you've got the time to do this, unless you're really trying to knock out 100 as quick as you can, you break it down over a lifetime, over 10 years, but certainly over 5, and you build multiple trips. And while you see in the course on the list, you see other courses nearby. And that's actually how the lists evolve as well in their own right. So I've used a lot recently the Muirfield example. People went to see Muirfield. They went down the street because the locals told them to, and went to North Berwick, and like, wow, how good's this place? Then North Berwick ends up on the list and progresses, and now it's ranked 25th in the world. It wasn't even on a top 100 list in 2007. People didn't find it by accident. It's because they were in that area and then found it.
Great point.
I think when you go to build a trip, because not everyone listening to this pod, or a handful of people listening to this pod, will go out and charge and try and do a top 100 list. It's reasonably unrealistic for most people to do that. You can be inspired to go on a golf trip. And I would say you'd be surprised when you come home, the courses you play, like Matt alluded to, that are your memory. So I call it, the guys that work for me at 8am Travel on our trips to say, what's the cigar story from that trip? So, you'll play a couple of open courses or big names, of course, on the list, but maybe they'll go and play Ely near St. Andrews, and there's like a submarine periscope on the first tee, literally a submarine periscope to see over the hill because the first tee shot is blind. And more people at the end of the week are talking about that than they are about playing Carnoustie. So if for some reason you're looking at doing your first trip to Scotland and you cannot get on that big name golf course, don't put it off a year. Just go anyway, because there's so much good stuff there. And I promise you, the stuff you come home talking about will be totally different to what you expect when you get on the plane.
Yeah. So I'll your renovation and restoration boom in the US. I think Sandhills and Bandon Dunes probably spurred some of that. Renovate Oakmont for sure, the tree removal program. Now, I often find my favorite is whenever at my clubs, when we do tree removal and you have some of the members that complain about taking trees out, I have found a direct relationship between people who miss the trees and people who like a nice bush on a lady. There's just something in comparison where they, I think to myself, like, why on earth would you not want to cut down more of these trees? Like, keep some of the beautiful ones. I digress. But the last 30 years, there's been Tom Doak, Cora Crenshaw, Gil Hands, and deservedly so. They've all done terrific work. But now there's enough business going around for the young guys coming up. You know, you've got Tyler Ray, OCM. Andrew Green has got to be just printing money right now. He's got so many deals that are coming through. One, what do you notice as a change with this newer group? I guess I'll kind of lead the question with, you know, there seems to be more maximalism than minimalism. And do you think that sometimes, you know, a round of golf should tell a story? Like, it can't all just be 4 hours of money shots or 3 hours of money shots. You got to buy a glass of wine, have a little foreplay. Like, some of these green complexes and bunkers are just overbuilt, in my view. Are there any trends you're seeing with this new group that's coming up?
I think at times, and I love a wild green like the rest of us. I really like putting, so I like the challenge of the green. If I miss the green, which invariably I do, I like an interesting chip back onto it. So a pan flat green would just be like dull as dishwater. I think sometimes with some of the greens now, it's almost like a challenge to see who can shock you the most. We do live in this kind of Instagram golf age as well, where every hole has to be a picture and a wow. So some of the more subtle, restrained work almost stands out in itself because they're, and I'm quoting a friend of mine's term here, they're zigging instead of zagging. Like, everyone else has got in a particular direction, and maybe to make yourself stand out, you don't do something that's as in your face. You know, I played a couple of courses down in South Carolina where I felt like a lot of the bunkering was there just to catch your eye rather than serve any purpose. So I just feel, and then you start to run into budget things as well. And we are unquestionably in this boom right now, but history in all walks of life has taught us one thing: it's all cyclical, and things come back into fashion and they go around in circles. And I'm just ready for whatever's coming next year or the year after financially, because, yeah, even with golf travel, and you'll allow me for a second, but since I've been a grown-up, we can call it that, I was in university in the early 2000s. We had 9/11, we had SARS, which was more obviously East coming West to visit Scotland to play golf, global financial crisis, we had a volcano in Iceland that stopped people coming, and we had this thing called COVID. So that's 5 things in 25 years, average of once every 5 years. Guess what, boys and girls? COVID was 2020. So what's coming around the corner? So while there's this massive boom in golf course development and people joining golf clubs and things like that, and people paying huge green fees, I think we all just need to be prudent and mindful that these things don't last forever. I don't know where I was going with that, but there you go. That's my piece.
Oh, well, that's good. Matt, I know you had a question. I stepped on you.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm new to chasing these lists, and almost, I mean, I guess every single trip I've taken to these places have been with a group of buddies, and that's been great. But I'm starting to think that maybe sometimes I should just go by myself to meet new friends and make new connections in the golf world. What kind of split have you done between traveling to see places by yourself and going with groups? And what do you recommend to somebody that's maybe going to go out and do this on their own by themselves a few times for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a people person. I love to be with other people. My own company is dreadful, so I like to be with people. I prefer kind of a little nimble group. I like going with 4, 8 guys. I mean, 12 is great. I wouldn't want to do it like every few months with 12 because it's just too many people to herd around. You know, you have to turn up pretty early. For the guys that are teeing off last, you feel like you're there really early, and by the time you finished, you know, the first group's kind of had their beer and they may be ready to go. So I think 8's kind of the sweet spot. But in terms of you answering your question directly about being on my own, there's a thing about golf, right? There's true escapism. So, and if you're bouncing around on your own, there's a bit of that sort of headspace that you can have to yourself. Sometimes I felt like I was on golf courses. I like to play fast. So if it's taking me forever and I'm stuck between 4 balls as a single and no one's really let me through, that's when I sort of said to myself, what am I doing here? Because I wasn't enjoying it at those times. But I think where you're coming from is more the opportunity to meet people. And I would say above anything else that this whole thing has taught me is I can talk about golf courses as long as anyone wants to talk about golf courses. Eventually it gets very, very boring. The coolest stories are the people you meet, the people you hang out with, the experience you've shared with each other. And like golf's a walk shared, right? So 100% do not let having a group of people around you stop you from going on these trips. Like go by yourself, grab one buddy and go as a two. Like you guys have experienced, I'm gathering, you'll be hosted by a member somewhere, or you'll get joined up with a member, you'll get to know them. And there's nothing financial about that. It's not to save yourself a few bucks, but the experience is so rich that you're learning about the history, you're learning about things from the member's perspective, stuff that's been changed. All of a sudden you're in the clubhouse and you're getting introduced to some other people. On the most basic level, you're having this way better experience, but then you usually become friends with them and hang out with them again. They come to your club and you never know where that goes in terms of friendships. And that's the thing that I think golf's almost undefeated at, as far as I'm concerned, is the way it connects people, the way people from all walks of life and backgrounds can be connected by golf, especially in a place like the UK, where there's far more public access at top courses. I feel you wouldn't meet all those walks of life at a country club in the US.
So we have a mutual good friend, Rich Levine, who's just a peach. I mean, I love the man. I can't get enough of him. We text throughout the day regularly about all sorts of stuff. He sends me new conspiracy theories by the minute. I love it. I live for it. I can't cut him off. But he's got his famous top 5 lists. And what I quickly learned about his top 5 lists is that 5 could be any number. It could be 2, it could be 12, but something is top 5, and that there's no real order to it. So like if I said, National Golf Links is a top 5 experience, like it is. It doesn't mean it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but it's a top 5 experience. So with that understanding, I would like to get a couple of your top 5s. So give me top 5 best golf experiences, regardless of rankings.
Okay. The one that jumps off like Tahiti is kind of, if it wasn't in New Zealand and I could afford to join and they would have me, Tahiti for me is like top of the list because I love the golf course, I love the people, I love the members, I love the staff, and the scenery does come into it. And it's out of this world. It's golf porn. If you haven't seen any pictures of it, take some pictures, go and have a shower. And then I would say, just to calm yourself down a minute, nothing else. Then I would say, I mean, places like Muirfields, that I grew up in East Lothian, Muirfields down there, the experience there, we're talking experience because North Berwick will always be my home and my favorite, but the experience at somewhere like Muirfield is so different, especially from people from the US. If you go down on a members day to Muirfield, which I'm lucky enough to be invited maybe once, twice a year, and you play foursomes in the morning, like alternate shot, you play in 2.5 hours, you come in, shower, jacket and tie, awesome lunch, like Thanksgiving lunch every day of the week there. You finish, you've drank a wee bit, and then you get out and you play foursomes again. You come back in, you maybe have a bit of toast and a cup of tea, and you take yourself home. There's just something amazing about that day that it is pure escapism, and it's so traditional. Of course, you would never dare look at your phone or have your phone turned on. And in this modern age as well, I love that you can just completely be separated from everywhere else. And if someone really needs to get hold of you, they'll get hold of you. Then I would probably say, and not to just be spread out geographically, but the likes of Hirono or Tokyo Golf Club in Japan, just because of how different that experience is verging on ceremonial. Like a lot of things in Japanese life, there's an order to the day and everyone's respectful of that, and it's kind of their house, you do it their way, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And you hear these stories of crazy long rounds. It does take a bit of time, but it doesn't feel like you're waiting on every single shot. Certainly not at those uber private clubs. Kanken Bay, you mentioned earlier, that place is unreal down on Hainan Island in China, core Crenshaw golf course, so that's amazing. you're just treated like, you cannot believe how well you're treated there. I mean, you've been there, and you've got a caddy that's taking care of you. There's a caddy that's also raking the bunkers. There's a caddy behind picking up every blade of grass that's hit from a divot is picked up and cleared away. The place is immaculate at all times. We've talked about Ardfern from an experience standpoint. Is you're just locked there alone with your buddies, and the food's incredible, the rooms are incredible, the scenery's off the charts. Then places like, I could go on all day. Places like Sandhills, True Escapism, National Golf Links is probably my favorite day in America. Fisher's Island, the whole getting there is really cool, even though I got a foggy day the day I played. Where else? Santa Pacienza down in Brazil, which is bonkers. Like my friend Paolo, it's a super private course that he and his father have down there. It's insane with these Jesus bridges where they've hidden all the cart paths. So they have cart paths that go through the lake that are maybe 6 inches below the surface. So if you look for it online, you'll find it on Instagram. I think called Jesus Bridges at Santa Pacienza in Brazil. And it looks like the golf carts are going on the top of the water, hence Jesus Bridges. Where else have we got?
I was supposed to hold a few days ago with David Forgan.
Oh, the Forganator.
A torn ligament in my wrist, so I couldn't make it. But I'm gonna. I was like, I'm willing to keep my flight and go down anyway and just putt. And he's like, no. I'm coming down again.
Oh, another time. That place is amazing. Then, like a couple of places in New Zealand. I got to go up to Elliston with Levine and Margolis. Like we helied up to Elliston a few years ago. That place is, as an experience, just bonkers because it's so private. So Elliston, Kerry Packers, or the Packer family's private course up there in the Hunter Valley in Australia. That's bonkers. Places like Moorfontein, really cool. Like the whole day there is great. Golf in the Netherlands, which you can go and do, like play at Royal Hague. Utrecht de Pan is, I think, one of the best cult routings. And all these places in these different parts of the world have a very different flavor to the day. And then I could name 50 golf courses in America, the likes of a Hoopie, just a brilliant place to spend a couple of days like at Hoopie. It's so much fun. And the golf course is great. I don't know, like LACC. Like people always said to me, like, oh, LACC is super stiff. I went there recently and played in a tournament, and I was there for 4 days. You know how respectful to be. We've all been around golf. You're never stepping out of line, but I had a lot of fun, and I never felt that I was under the microscope because you know how to behave. It's someone else's house. You just follow the rules, and it's great. And I could go on all day. There's so many great experiences.
So I'm going to rip through a category we have that we really only pull out for architecture experts. We call it 10 round splits. You've got 10 rounds you can split between two courses, and give us your breakdown. So up first, North Berwick versus Muirfield.
It's the hardest one of all for me. Play my own ball, not foursomes, right? Play my own ball. I'll go 7-3 North Berwick. But I will say on this one, the caveat on this one, a good friend of mine, it's his line that I've stolen. He said if he had one last round, it would be at North Berwick. If he had one last day, it would be at Muirfield. And there lies the difference.
That is a great point. Next up, two of my favorites, Sunningdale versus Moorfontein.
Sunningdale.
You can pick either old or new.
I'll pick Sunningdale Old, and I will go 7-3 Sunningdale.
Okay. To the great state of Pennsylvania, Oakmont versus Marion.
6-4 Oakmont.
The Hamptons, Shinnecock versus National next door.
That's very, very similar to the North Berwick Muirfields. Like one is super fun, quirky. The other's like the real championship ball buster. I'll give the same answer. Probably 7-3 National over Shinnecock.
Okay. Augusta National versus Cypress Point.
Oh, wow. Just golf course or everything?
All in.
All in? 7-3 Augusta. Okay. Even though the walk at Cypress is the best walk in golf. I will say that.
Our friend David Bannister is a former panelist, brilliant guy, Pine Valley member, played everywhere. He for some reason with Cypress Point, you know, we'll say, well, if you take the ocean away, it's not that great. You can't really take the ocean away. Like I don't get that. And then my buddy Jeff Shackelford will say, Cypress Point, world number one, no question. So that I always am fascinated with people's takes on Cypress. All right, we're gonna take it to Matt's neck of the woods. Southern Hills versus Prairie Dunes.
Wow.
Don't worry, Matt steal exactly at every show.
I played them day after day. Matt, forgive me because it was before Gil had done his work when I played Southern Hills. Probably it was 7-3 Prairie Dunes.
Right, but definitely,
My guess is that's going to flip after you come play the Gil Hands redesign.
it's good. It's good. Royal County Down versus Royal Port Rush.
Oh, that's a really tough one. I might have to go dead level. I have 5-5. Port Rush, just more going on, like in the town of Port Rush. Love my boy Matt McAlpin's bars at Ramore and Harbour Bar and all that stuff. Golf course, I probably prefer Royal County Down as a golf course. I love Royal County Down's a bit more traditional, slip on the jacket and tie, that type of thing. I love the traditions there, but it's got to be bang level 5-5.
Okay, two more. Shankin Bay versus Ardfin.
For this is another tough one. I'll probably go 8-2 Shankin Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just cool going to China. I thought it was neat. I liked having the girls help push me up the hill on the second 18 of the day.
Yeah.
You know, they could tell I needed the help. All right, last one.
Yeah.
Royal Melbourne Composite versus the old course at St. Andrews.
Wow. Probably I'm going to go 7-3 old course, even though I personally feel that Royal Melbourne's a better golf course. I will go St. Andrews. I was at university at St. Andrews, so it's impossible for me not to have, when you're including all the other stuff in the town and the history and all the rest of it, it's impossible for me not to go that way around.
And you were there with Prince William and Kate.
Yeah.
Up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Kate chose William over you. Were you ever in the running? Or
I like to think it's more that my wife chose me over Prince William, actually, Rob. But
hey, that's a good one. All right, so I've just got a couple more quick ones, and we'll let you go. I know you're busy and we're coming up on time, but let's talk about whiskey. You're a member of a whiskey Scotch Whiskey Society. You know, what's your favorite region in Scotland, or do you have a favorite brand?
yeah, well, yeah, this thing I'm a member of, and anyone can join. It's called the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. If people want to look it up online, like anyone can join if you're into whiskey. It's not even that expensive. It's maybe I'm guessing, like, because I've been a member a long time, it's like £100 to join and then £50 a year. It's not one of these things you have to be proposing second for. It's just if you're really into whiskey. So look it up. I won't bore you with it now, but it's kind of cool single cask stuff that you can get. It's really interesting, and they have 2 locations in Edinburgh. I think they're franchising it out around the world, but anyway, it's fun. And my favorite whiskeys, I prefer like Speyside or Lowland whiskey. So again, where I'm from, there's a distillery called Glenkinchie that's just really smooth and soft, and then places like Dalwhinnie, as you drive up the A9 towards Dornoch, it's a great place to stop. The distillery is the highest distillery in Scotland. I sway away from, even though I've got some right next to me from Ardfin, actually, from like the Jura and the West Coast whiskies those are the super smoky ones. Anything from the West Coast and those islands are smoky because they use the peat to roast, the barley, I guess, the grain, and that's what gives it that smoky flavor. To me, it's just a little too like antiseptic at times, that flavor, and I just prefer that kind of softer note.
Are there any American whiskeys or bourbons that you like or you find passable?
Nothing jumps out at me. And that's not because I don't like it. Believe me, I'll drink anything. But it's not like I've got any sort of brand allegiance. I'm probably, if I'm in the US and I'm letting the handbrake off, I'm more of a vodka guy. So Yeah,
That sounds
that's
good.
that.
And I know Matt will have a closing question or two, but my last one is I know you love music. Would you rather go to a Taylor Swift concert with your daughters or go see Oasis with your wife or friends?
Well, I know which one was cheaper. I got to do both of those in the last few years. Taylor Swift, I basically could have gone on another golf holiday with 8 of my buddies for. I took my wife and the 2 girls. I had a great time. I'm a 44-year-old guy. It's not my music, but I went to Oasis having that very much was. That's why I mentioned my age. That very much was my youth, and it was the best 2 hours of my life. And I unashamedly would pick that over Taylor Swift, even though I love my girls to pieces. That's selfish of me, and I'm going to Oasis 10-0 versus Taylor Swift.
All right, I like that. Matt, you
All right. Two final questions, and we gotta weave in some politics here because this is the golf and politics podcast.
Love it.
Just simply, what do you think that people in the United Kingdom get wrong? Because you found, oh, there we go, there we go. I love it. I love it. That's
oh,
great. That's fantastic. So you spent a lot of time in the United States. Like, what do people in the UK get wrong about American politics, and what do people in America get wrong about politics in the UK?
Interesting. Um, I'm not sure what we get wrong about it. It's more our impression of it. So I'd say our news over here, and it's very topical right now because of the BBC and people, basically fell on their swords at the BBC for a pretty poor editing job, to say the least, on one of President Trump's speech around the January 6th. And that's not positioning my viewpoint on that day at all. But I don't know if you read about this, but there's an editing of a program called Panorama where they did the edit, and it was Trump's speech that day. And he goes, "I want us to march up to the Capitol," and he then goes on to say, apparently in like the full speech, "and support all our senators and blah blah blah." And they edited it for it to say, "and fight, fight, fight." And that's what they had on this show called Panorama, and it was aired in the UK about 2 weeks before the election, when he was going against Biden, I think. So there's a big thing about that, and now Trump's suing the BBC for $1 billion. And a couple of people resigned. They admitted it was their fault and it was poor editing. So I've gone down a rabbit hole with that one particular story. We get a view that I think is probably slightly left of center if you're watching the BBC. And I don't know why that is. I don't think it's necessarily anti-Trump. It's just because he's such easy news for us over here. So I'm not saying, I don't necessarily think they're biased against Trump. It's just because it's so easy to put him in the spotlight and create commentary around that. I think what we probably get wrong over here is our perception more of the American people than your politics. I think when I go to America, depending on which TV channel I turn on, I'm living in 2 different countries, or I'm visiting 2 different countries. And there doesn't seem to be, if you'll allow me to say this, hopefully I don't offend anyone, there's no middle ground. I find it very hard to just sit there and listen because people don't listen to each other, and there's no one can have a conversation, it would seem, anymore. I'm exaggerating, of course. There's lots of people that can have a conversation. I've heard Rob have them. But I find it tough that people can't just sit around a table and instead of being ready to jump down someone's throat, they're actually listening. I feel that our politics over here, we still have some of that, but it's drifting more towards US style politics, perhaps because we've been so aware of your politics in the last dozen years because of Trump. I don't believe that's a good thing. I would love people to be able to not necessarily agree with each other all the time, but to respect each other's opinions.
They're also hiring a lot of US consultants from the political space, like former Obama people, former Bush people, former Trump people. So unfortunately, a lot of our former colleagues are bringing this brand of constant vitriol over to the UK. Matt and I were talking on a episode we filmed last night that was more political, and our conversations one-on-one without a camera on are always productive and respectful and more or less talking about the business of politics and how it works and procedurally, et cetera, than it is, wanting to rip each other's faces off. Now, those moments certainly occur. We're in the midst of this world, and it's difficult and challenging. But I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have political debates regularly with Rich Levine, and I love it. I enjoy it. I like being challenged by people who disagree with me, and I think that that's healthy. And it's like somebody, dying on a hill over thinking that Marion is better than Oakmont. Like, you don't get really upset over the things that you can easily prove, right? Think about it. So we fight tooth and nail over religion because we all have our own deeply held beliefs, but we can't prove them. It's like if you said, Rob, 2 + 2 is 5. I'm not going to lose my shit on you because I know it's 4. Like, I can prove that. I think that's something where, if you enter the debate with a general basic respect for the other person, and you both admit, hey, we all love our families. We all want clean air and clean water. We want safe streets. We all want to pay less and get more. That's a running theme. Then I think you can have more productive conversations.
The one thing that sort of, I think one of the bigger differences as well, like over here, if you vote for the Conservatives, the Tories, or you vote for Labour, people are like, okay, fine, and there's going to be stuff we disagree on. Like, I've pulled out jokingly that hat because I knew I'd be speaking to you, Rob. I've played golf with the president twice before his first presidency. And it was so much fun. Like, he played. If I told you on Saturday you're going to play with a guy that plays in 2.5 hours, he's going to compliment you on every good shot. You're going to have a great time. He's going to bust your balls a little bit. You're going to jostle back with him. He's invariably going to win because he picks the best player to play with. And then the conversations comes out about, oh, have you ever seen him do anything? What I have seen him do is, like, say, buddy, you're in a divot. Take it out of there. We're not playing the Ryder Cup. Let's go. Like, he just wants you to enjoy your day. Then at the end of it, he won't let you put your hand in your pocket for lunch. He's tipping his staff like crazy, and off he goes like in a whirlwind. You're like, I want to play golf with that guy. It was really good fun. But when I tell some people, oh, I've played golf with them, they're like, they almost want to pigeonhole you into a box. That doesn't mean I'm a Trump supporter. That just means I play golf with someone. And I am probably just right of center, but I'm like, I would love to go and play around and golf with Obama. Like, I just found him so engaging when he was on stage and when he was giving speeches. And I don't necessarily agree with some of his standpoints, but I don't know. I feel people can get pigeonholed very quickly to the extremes when actually I think most sensible people are just slightly one side or the other of the center.
Well, and you have to compartmentalize things too, where I've had several interactions with Donald Trump, and they've all been positive. Every single one of them. Like, he was nice enough on the golf course. I went to Georgetown with Eric. I've known Eric for a long. I've never had any bad personal interactions. And Rich will always say, "Why do all these people like him personally or when he was a celebrity, but now that he's president, can't stand him?" And I said, well, once you're responsible for a $4 trillion federal budget and social policy and the military, you're going to get criticism. It's just part of the nature of being president. It's why you get the plane and the White House and the band plays when you walk in the room. Well, part of the price for that is people get to criticize. And, and I think that I've heard nothing but positive stories about him on the golf course. But, in fairness, I'm sure Benito Mussolini had his moments.
He was great for golf as well. He is great for golf as well, though. Like, I mean, the money that he's pumped into golf, and to have this, I mean, some people might see it as a negative. Like, all of a sudden he's sparing golf. I'm so far away from that. If ever you go to one of his places, you have a great time. The staff are always great, or I've always found they're great. it's in good condition. It's well taken care of. The staff are wonderful off the course as well. All the food and everything. Like he's pumped so much money into golf, and there's that side of him that I see, and that's how I met him. And what he's got on to do now. There's some things he'll say that I'll disagree with, but there's a lot that he says that I do agree with. And again, it's just picking and choosing. I suppose when someone's so full tilt, you have to sort of take in warts and all. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think of UK politics. So, like looking from America into the UK.
I was always a big Tony Blair fan. I mean, Sans going along with the Iraq War. I always just thought he was incredibly talented in the mix of him and Bill Clinton first, and then he kind of overlapped with George W. Bush. I had a unique chance to testify before the British Parliament on it, interestingly enough, on migration issues, immigration, work visas, student visas, port security. And then my favorite aspect of the British Parliament was they have a communal pub, and it's got a terrace right out on the River Seine. And I think the American Congress would greatly benefit from having a bipartisan pub where they drink together. And because our biggest problem is that they really don't know each other. They fly in from their district on Tuesday morning, they fly home Thursday night. They're busy those 3 days they're there. They don't have time to break bread. Sometimes they'll come in for a fundraiser to play golf with me. Republicans and Democrats. I raise money for both sides. But the ones I like, there are enough Democrats I can't stand too. They're just out of power and you don't hear it as much from me, but I can't stand some of those bastards too. But I love the British, the communal element, the pub, just the setting, is fantastic. I like the idea. I like the parliamentary system, especially with our screwed up gerrymandered mess. I think that it makes a lot of sense. It kind of tracks where the mood is in the country. I don't think there are as many differences between the Labour and Tory parties as there used to be. And it would drive people nuts for me to say that. And it would drive people nuts for me to say that really in how they behave, there's not as much difference between Democrats and Republicans as you would think on sort of the core issues. We're just really bad at focusing on the shit that matters. And I hope you don't become more like where I think we have a great system. I think we have a great country, but we've got to figure out how to make change our friend instead of change our enemy. And particularly with technology, because we are failing horribly at figuring out how to make social media, fragmented media, cable news our friend instead of our enemy. Because right now it's giving crazy people on both sides legitimate platforms without any fact checking. And it's obviously leading to a lot of disparity in wealth and experience and opportunities. And the difference today is now you can see it. So like kids I went to high school with who are maybe in the pipe fitters union or didn't get to go to college or university, they can go on Facebook or Instagram and see the rest of us living this lavish lifestyle, playing golf all over the world. And it leads to a lot of resentment and division. And those are things that you really didn't see before. So I guess that's a long and short way of saying that I have great admiration for the British government. And I hope you don't trend toward where we're going. And I hope that we can at some point kind of take a step back and grow up a little and be kind to each other. There's too much punching down in our politics. And my big issue, I used to be a Republican. I'm probably on the conservative side of the Democratic Party on financial issues, obviously socially more liberal. I hate bullies and I love bullying bullies. Like, and my beef with Trump isn't so much just his position on all the issues. There are issues where I'm fine with. I hate the punching down. Like, you got to be better than that. If you're a billionaire and the president of the United States and have all the power anybody could ever want, it's our responsibility to lift people up. And he drives me nuts. Like because I know he's better than that. Because I wouldn't have friends like you and Rich Levine tell me all these great things about him. And Matt and I had dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and I want to have a moment where I'm proud of my president. He just doesn't give me very many of those chances to be proud of him. And I'm not saying that means the Democrats are great. They're not. We've got our heads up our asses too. But he gets under my skin.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah.
What's your
Well,
impression of UK politics?
Well, first I have to say, I have the complete opposite view of Trump. I've voted for him 3 times and would vote for him again if he could run again. I think that in a lot of ways he's changed American politics for the better because he's allowed some of our candidates to be authentically themselves. That doesn't come without challenges, though, and I don't think there's any perfect governmental system anywhere in the world on planet Earth. But I will say this: part of the challenge that has come from Trump being Trump is that it has set up a bit of a cult of personality in the sense of the Republican Party is not an ideological party anymore. It has become the party of Donald Trump. Where if I look at the UK or I look at Canada, where I used to do a lot of work in Canada, it's very party and policy driven and coalition. It's about building the right coalitions in order to govern. There's really no coalition building happening in the US right now. You said it earlier. The middle is gone. Are there people that live in the middle? Yes, but there's such a small percentage that the only election that they really ever, the only election that they impact is the presidential election. So many of these elections are just decided in Republican primaries or Democratic primaries, where and it's a lot when you look at the races where it is a toss up. Personality drives who wins those elections oftentimes. Where in the UK, I think it's less about the personality and more about the movement that the party's making through the nation and the coalition they're going to build and the agenda that they're going to pass. But that's, again, me as an outsider looking in. I've not spent enough time in the UK to say I have any kind of understanding of the politics.
I guess the one really interesting thing that's happening here right now is the rise of the Reform Party, which is the kind of the far right of the Conservative Party that by many will be, and rightly in some cases, will be labelled racist. But there's a lot of people there that are just like, no, I just believe in the traditional conservative values of low taxes, being hard on immigration, and X, Y, and Z. And that's what's unusual that we're having now. We kind of had this two-party system where the Liberal Democrats were the third party and they kind of played this role, but weren't necessarily taken seriously. It was almost a get-out-of-jail-free vote for someone that was at a dinner and was asked certain questions. They'd go, I'll vote for them. And now the Reform Party's coming in and they're a proper challenge. They're almost like breaking up what is our Republican Party, really. And that has forced the Conservative Party more towards the middle. I think people tend to forget David Cameron, who was the leader of the Conservative Party at the time, was actually against Brexit. So the leader of the Conservative Party then was not for Brexit. But, Boris Johnson and Michael Gove and Rees-Mogg and a bunch of that part of the Conservative Party drove a slightly different agenda. And obviously Nigel Farage. It's quite interesting whether we'll move legitimately to a position where there could be three parties. I'm talking about UK here, not Scotland, that could vie for a decent number of seats in Parliament next time around. But there you go.
I feel like on this podcast today, we got to the 1 hour point and I was really proud of myself because
Hey, both. Yeah.
I thought, we're gonna get Simon out of here in an hour. We're gonna be respectful of his time.
I do have to go now, by the way. But
and then I just blew through it. But Simon, I feel like on this podcast today, I was doing a little bit of list chasing because you're so knowledgeable, and I really wanted to get through a ton of different topics. But I feel like we could do a whole podcast just on politics, or just on Scotch, or just on any one of these topics. But we're going to leave you with the one question that we ask absolutely everybody. It's a quick answer. Dream foursome. Any politician, any celebrity, and any professional golfer, alive or dead. The dream Simon Holt foursome.
Sorry, celebrity, politician, and golfer, did you say?
Yes. And I remember I have one more question after this, but I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can the golfer be dead or alive?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Sevi is the golfer. Celebrity, he doesn't play golf though, but Liam Gallagher is so funny. I'd love to have Liam Gallagher from Oasis. It'd just be absolutely hilarious.
I think you have a man crush.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. He's so funny. I just love he just doesn't care. I'm trying not to say something cliche like Churchill, but it would be kind of cool to kind of get inside his brain. I honestly, I probably would quite like to play with Obama. I think, I feel I've been lucky enough to play with someone like Trump. Lucky in the sense that I got an insight into what I believe is his true personality. And I would like to see that from the other side of two people that have been so influential in my lifetime. Even living here in the UK, they've had such an influence on my life. So it would be cool to see the other side.
All right. Final quick question. You're building Simon Holt golf links. You can pick any architect ever, alive or dead. Who's designing Simon Holt golf links?
Well, you're not a true golf geek if you don't want to design it yourself, right? So I'm avoiding the question because I've been told off in the past about putting my thumb on the scale. Probably Harry Colt would be, if I had any choice, it would be Harry Colt. But yeah, if I'm lucky enough to build a course one day, then I'm definitely going to have my hands on the tiller or the shovels or whatever you would say.
Well, Simon, this was an absolute joust. Really, really enjoyed it. It's good to see
Thank you.
Hear your voice, and I hope we can do it again. But more importantly, I hope we get to play some golf together and throw a few back.
Absolutely. That was great. But thank you so much for having me. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. Speak to you all soon.
All righty. Take care.
Thanks, Simon.